Hello everyone. In this session, I am going to quickly show you how to debug your Spring application if you are stuck anywhere or you are not getting a response or you are not getting an expected result. So I'm going to cover some of the basics of how you can debug your code and figure out what the problem is. So I am in the code where I left in my previous session, and I have some of the applications running. Let me quickly run some of the services again for you. So I have configuration server and the service discovery running. After that, I am running API gateway in debug. After that, I am running auth service in debug, and I am also running one of my downstream service, which is, let's say, course service in debug mode. So all my services are running. Configuration server and service discovery is not running in debug because there is no logic and we don't want to debug those. Only the API gateway, auth service, and course service is running in the debug mode. So let's see. Let's say if I want to get, so I have this request going and I have the authorization header. Let me again explain how this comes. So if I go on internet and I open a base64 encoder, so my username and password is this. If I encode it, I get this. Okay. So if you see this and you see what I have in my request, they will both match. Okay. So then your username colon password, and this will be appended with basic. So this is your whole authorization header, which should be going, and this is my whole authorization header. So if I send this request and I get all the courses. Now let's say my authorization header has some problem. I removed one character from the end and I send the request. I get unauthorized, but let's say I have no idea why my request was unauthorized. There is not much information. Okay. Or let's say if I try, let's say I want to authenticate and I send a request to authenticate, and let's say my password is not right and I send a request and I get authentication failed. But how will I debug? Where to fix the code? Is the problem in the code or is the problem in my request? I don't know. So that's what we are going to look. Debugging helps in figuring out all these issues very quickly. So let's start with, let's say I want to do a sign up. So I will open the sign up request where I have email, name, and password. And so now what is the sequence? My request is going from API gateway, which means the request is going to land in the API gateway filter first. So I'm here and I'm going to put a breakpoint. So if you click on the left and this dot is the breakpoint, which means your code is going to stop here. The shortcut for this is F9. So you can also press F9 to toggle your breakpoints. Okay. So now let's run the request for the sign up and see my request has landed here. I am getting the request. So what I do is I will step over or F10, which means this line will be executed. Now to see what is inside path, I can hover it and I see the path is auth sign up. The other way to figure out what the variables have, so that you don't have to hover on those. You can put some of your important variables in the watch. So in the left side, you will see a watch window. You can paste it, enter, and this will always show you what is the current value of your variable. Okay. Now, what I'm doing in the code is, if there is any request for the authorization service, this will be passed to the next filter in the chain. Okay, so the next filter in the chain is the filter for the authorization service. So let's go to authorization service, and if we see, we don't have a filter. Okay, so which means if there is no filter, then the next step is to land in the controller of that service. So I am going to put a breakpoint in the sign up function. So from API gateway filter, it is going to go to the auth service filter, but because there is no filter I have written, so it is going to land in the controller. From controller, it is going to the service layer. From service layer, it is going to the repository layer. So now to make your request go here, I can press F5 or continue on to the top if you see my mouse. So continue means if my code is here and I continue, it is going to execute everything in the path and will only stop when it hits the next breakpoint. So the next breakpoint is inside the auth controller. So when I press continue, my code will hit here. Okay, so now I can run this line. Now you have to be put a little intuition where your the problem in the code could be. So let's say I say maybe the problem is in the sign up. So you want to go inside sign up. So what you do is you will right click, go to the definition of sign up, or you can directly go to the service layer and sign up, and you put a breakpoint here. And then maybe let's put another breakpoint in the repository sign up here. So when I continue from controller, the next breakpoint is in the service layer. So when I continue, it will hit the service layer. Okay. Now what I'm doing here is I am getting a sign up DTO. So to see what's inside the sign up DTO, let's copy it and put that in the watch window. So put that in the watch window and let's see what the values are. So email has this value, name has this value, password has this value. Okay, so let's continue. So what now is happening here is I am encoding my password and resetting the password in the encoded form. So when I execute this line using F10 or step over, you will see the value changing, and you see how the value of password has changed. It has been encoded now. So that's how you see what's going in your code. You do again F10. Now what we are going to do is we are signing up in the auth repository. So let's continue and we will land in the repository. Here we are putting a query which is inserting our values into the database. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint in the catch, because we know that this is not going to sign up because this user is already signed up. So as soon as I try to execute this query, there will be an error, and because I have a try catch, I will come here. See, and now you can see what the problem is. So if you hover on exception and you will see the detail message, you will see a detail message which says duplicate entry, the user already exists. So you are able to quickly find out why your request for sign up is failing, and you will try to fix it. So I'm just going to continue. Although I have an exception here and this error is going to show up, so this was pretty easy to know, but sometimes the errors are not very intuitive and you might not know what the problem is. So let's take another example. I am going to open get services. Okay, get courses. And here I am going to make my 64-bit encoding bad, so that I see that I will not be. So at this time I'm not going to debug, just continue this, and let's see what we get. So I get unauthorized. Now, because you don't know what the problem is in the code or in the authorization header or somewhere else, so you will decide to debug your code. Okay, so now when I send this request, this is going to land in the API gateway filter first. Okay, because we are hitting the API gateway 9004. Send and see. So I am going to execute this line, and because this request is not going to auth service, this is actually going to the core service, so this will not go inside the if condition. Now what we are doing here is we are taking out the authorization header. Okay, so do this, and to see what we get in the authorization header, you see we got basic and the encoded value. So this way you will be able to figure out what's going on. Now here what we are doing, we are checking if the authorization header does not start with basic, which means the authorization header is not right, and we will return with a unauthorized error. But because it is starting with basic, so this is good. Okay, next what we are going to do is we are decoding our authorization header. So if we see a decoded string, you will see we get back the decoded string. And see, because we made our authorization header decoded value bad, so see the password is not right here. Okay, let's move on still and see what happens. So now I'm taking out username and password. Hover on the password and you will see password is not right, username is my email address. Okay, so now next I'm creating a auth DTO, and then this will be passed to the auth service for the authentication. So here I am creating a request, and then here I am sending it to the auth service, and if it is not successful, it will be returned, and if it is successful, I am adding the authorization for the core service and adding a secret header as well. So the next filter is going to be the auth service authentication. Okay, so let's go in auth service controller and put a breakpoint in the authentication. Okay, as soon as I continue, it will land here. See, it came here. So I got my auth DTO. Let's see the value. So if I open CRED, I am getting a username, email, and the password. Okay, so now I want to go inside the service. So let's go inside the service for the authentication, and let's continue the code. So it will reach here. Okay, so email, next password. Okay, this is not right, but still let's go. Now here what is happening, I am calling a function which will give me the password from the email, from the database. Okay, so let's see, and I got the password from the database, so let's put that in the watch. So now from the database I got this password because this was encoded, and I am going to decode it and return. Okay, so it was decoded and it is going to be returned where it came from. And also what I'm doing is I am also matching it. So the password I got from the user and the password which I got from the database, which is decoded, is matched. If they match, it will return true. If they don't match, it will return false. So I am returning false, which means my user password which came in the request and what was in the database did not match. So that's the clue for you. So what you are going to do is you will investigate a little more why the passwords are not matching, which means your request has a problem. So when it will be returned, where it will go? It will go to your controller. So in the controller, it went from here. So let's put a breakpoint here so that when it returns, it hits the next line and you will be able to see what actually happened. So when I continue, the request will come back from your service layer and the next line has a breakpoint. So it is going to hit here. See, now is authenticated will be false because our passwords did not match. So let's put that also in the watch, and you see is authenticated is false, and when you step over, it will return unauthorized. And if you go in your HTTP client, you will see unauthorized. So that's how you will be able to figure out this was the problem. Okay. So what you are going to do is you will figure out, let's see. So you will go on the internet, try to decode your value, and you will see, oh, this was not matching, and this is the right decoding for you. So you come back, you fix it, and you send the request again. And this time we will not debug because probably you think that let's just try it. If it works, otherwise you will debug again. So it went, and let's go. So you will keep continuing, and this time you get all your courses. Okay. So now let's see the whole sequence of this thing. Let's say I am sending the request again. So the first thing it will land is API gateway filter. Okay, we are going now here. We are taking the which I have already showed you. This is fine. Here we are creating a request to send the request to the authenticate endpoint of the auth service. So it will come back. So let's put a breakpoint here. Okay, when it comes back, and let's put a breakpoint in else if it fails, and let's put a breakpoint in if it is passing. And let's not debug the auth service because I already showed you. So what I'm going to do is keep continuing until it lands either here or here. So I continued, it went into the authenticate because I have a breakpoint here. Now it will hit the auth service because I have a breakpoint here, and I continue because it returned, and after the return there is a breakpoint here. So I will continue and see, this time the request was successful. So it hit the if condition and not the else condition, which was for unauthorized. Okay. Now next, what I am going to do is I am actually adding the authorization for the student service. Okay. So I am getting the route from the request and I'm getting the route ID. So if you see the route ID, this is core service. Okay. So I have a authorization factory return, which takes a route ID, and from route ID, it gives back the authorization for that specific service. Okay. So if you want to debug, let's go into the authorization factory, and in the authorization factory, let's put a breakpoint in the build auth header. So this function is calling build auth factory. Okay. So when I continue, and let's put a breakpoint here for when the request will come back, it will hit this. Okay. So when I continue, it is going to hit build auth header function. See, it came here. Now I have got a service name here. So see how the code is working. If it's service core service, I have hard-coded username and password. Okay, that's fine. Now here what I'm going to do is username colon password, and this will be encoded to 64-bit. The same thing which I did here. So when I encoded this, and the string this is going to actually match. So let's try to encode it. I will not see it because I am encoding as well as returning it from here. So let's go back, and we will not be able to see because I added the encoded header in this, but we should be able to see in the next filter chain. So now everything looks fine. We created a new header and we are calling the next filter change. So the request was for the course service. This means the next filter in the chain is going to be the course service filter. And because we have written a course service filter, it should be able to hit that. So let's go back. Let's go into the course service and let's put a breakpoint in the filter of course service. Okay. So from the filter of API gateway, I am calling the next filter and I'm passing the request. Okay. So let's see where it hits. See, it hit the course service filter. Here I am getting the header. So let's take the header out. Now let's see what the header is. See, I got the header NCU college secret because that was set in the request. That was my secret header, and I will verify it what I have saved in my configuration. So if we go in my course service configuration, the secret header is NCU college secret @123. So this means if I go back in the filter and I am also getting this, so this should match. If this will not match, this will return unauthorized. Okay. So next, I am not manually authenticating the course service credentials the way I did in the API gateway. Okay. So if we again go to the API gateway filter, here, when you got the credentials, okay, you actually took out header and you created a request here and you passed those to the auth service for the authentication. Okay, so that was all manual work. But here, and that is why if you go in your API gateway properties, no, you go in API gateway config here. That's why we disabled basic authentication and form login, because we want to manually authenticate the request, okay, at the API gateway level. But after that, we will let Spring Security do the authentication. So let's go back in our course service filter. Here, we are not doing manual authentication, and that is why if you go in the application config for the course service, I am not adding any form login to false or basic authentication to the false. So you can do all of that here, but just to make it simple, I did not authenticate manually and let the Spring Security do the authentication. Okay. Because I already showed you how to manually authenticate in the API gateway filter. So I did not want to repeat the code and I did not write it. So now what is going to happen here? The next filter chain will be called in the course service. The next filter chain is the course service controller. But before that, Spring Security is going to authenticate your credentials, which are coming in the header. Okay. And those header were set in the API gateway filter. So in the API gateway filter, if you see, I created a build auth header, which I just showed you. It was encoded and set in the authorization header. Okay. And it was passed to the course service. So then the course service was hit and its filter was hit. Now here it will be authenticated by the Spring Security automatically. Okay. And if all goes well, the next filter in the chain is the course controller. And because we want to get all courses, so it should be coming here. Okay. So let's see. And see, it came here and all goes well. And you should be able to see the response. Okay, now let's do something bad so that our request does not reach the course controller. So let's see, in our auth header factory for the course service, which the password is here, course service. So let's say I make the password wrong, save it. So when the auth header will be created by the API gateway, it will not be right. So if we go in the filter, in the build auth header, this will return a bad password. And when this goes to my course service filter, the header will be okay, the secret header, but the filter chain will not pass to the next filter in the chain because my authentication will fail by the Spring Security. So because I did code changes, I am going to stop API gateway and run it again. Okay, so let's right click, debug. Let's do one more thing. Let's stop it again and go in the auth factory. So auth factory, because I am actually returning this, rather returning, let me just save it here before returning so that you can see what was created. Okay, save it and now run the API gateway in debug. So put a breakpoint here, send a request. Okay, let's expect everything is going fine and we will hit the core service filter. Okay, go here, all good, all good, and we reach the core service filter was not hit. So okay, one correction, before hitting the filter, Spring Security is actually going to do the authentication. So in the filter, the Spring Security won't do the authentication here, it will do the authentication before reaching here. Okay, so you see it was not hit. Why? Because Spring Security failed the authentication. So let's see if we get something in our, this line is going to pass the request to the course. Yes, now. So it did not come. It did not hit the filter. But now what this means? This means your Spring Security failed the authentication or the credentials provided to the core service. So which means where you are going to debug, you will debug where you are creating your credentials for the core service, right? So let's send the request again, and this time you are going to stop in the auth header creation here. Okay, so here you will see we had a breakpoint. Let's see what we are getting. So what you are going to do is you are going to see auth what it is creating. So you will see, oh, it is created core service colon, oh, this is not right. So you will catch it because it is not landing in the core service filter, which means Spring Security failed your validation. Okay, so you come here and you will see what's inside the auth, and you will see, oh, the username is core service colon and the spelling is not right, which means your header is not going to be right. And what you are going to do is you will see, oh, where it is coming from. Okay, so probably it is coming from the configuration. You will go back and you fix it, right? So now when you send this request, this will be failed before entering the filter and your filter won't hit for the core service. See, it did not hit. And if you go here, you will see unauthorized. So that's how you were able to figure out what the problem was. So now you will go here in the API gateway properties and see the password should not be right. Okay, yes. So you will fix it, save it, and stop the API gateway and run again. Okay, the API gateway is running again. Let's send the request. Okay, after I send the request, Let's see what the auth header we are creating. See, this time our header got created. Now, when I send the request to the next filter chain, it should be hitting the core service filter. See, it came here. But before it was not, when the credentials were not right. Okay, so your request will run fine this time. Okay, we know the request for the encoding and the header will be created fine this time, and it hits the core service filter. Next, it is going to into the core service controller, so everything looks fine and you get the courses. So that's how you are going to debug your application when something is not right. I explained you how to put breakpoints, how to continue your application, how to step over uh, onto the code. There is another thing which is step in or F11. If you see at the top where I am hovering my mouse, it is F11. So if you want to go inside a function, you will do step in. So there are two ways to go into a function. You right click and go to the definition and put a breakpoint, or you can directly step into the function. So these are some of the basic things I explained. I explained how to put watch to see the variable values at runtime, how they are changing. And this way you should be able to debug your application. But the important part is you should be knowing the fundamentals, because Spring applications are not sequential code. They jump from one service to another. So you should be knowing from one point to the next point where your request will be going, so that you can put a correct breakpoint at the correct location. I think that should be good enough for you to make progress and learn debugging and make your debugging fundamentals and foundation more strong. I'm going to stop this session here, and we'll see you in some other session where I will dive into more Spring concepts. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.